This week we will talk about muscle contraction mechanics and EMG. In this lecture, we will talk about the processes that are involved in contracting a muscle. Let's start by looking at the skeletal muscle anatomy. The muscle that we know consists of bundles of fascicles, which are wrapped in a thin layer of connective tissue called perimysium. The individual fascicles are made up of muscle fibers, which are wrapped in a thin layer of sarcolemma. As you can see, the muscle fibers have striations that separate the fibers into sections. This is a close-up view of the muscle fiber. The striations that you see in muscle fibers are the structures called triad. The triad consists of a T-tubule and terminal cistern of the sarcoplasmic reticulum on both sides of the T-tubule. The T-tubule is an extension of the sarcolemma that wraps the muscle fiber and also penetrates into the muscle fiber. The terminal cistern of the sarcoplasmic reticulum, which stores calcium ions, connects the T-tubule and the tubules of sarcoplasmic reticulum that wraps around the muscle fibers. The individual muscle fibers are made up of bundles of myofibrils that are made up of thick and thin myofilaments known as actin and myosin. Let's now look closely at these myofilaments. The myosin consists of a tail and heads. The interaction between the myosin heads and the actin plays a key role in physically shortening the length of the sarcomere and thus the muscle fiber and the whole muscle. The key protein on actins are troponin complex and tropomyosin. When the muscle is relaxed, the troponin complex covers up the binding sites for myosin heads. When the signals to contract the muscle reaches the muscle fiber, the calcium is released from the terminal cistern of the sarcoplasmic reticulum, and the calcium binds to the tropomyosin. When the calcium binds with the tropomyosin, the protein rotates and moves the troponin complex to expose the binding site for the myosin heads, allowing the myosin head to bind to actin. Myofibrils that consist of myosin and actin myofilaments have lines and bands that create striation. The A band of the myofibril contains the entire length of the single myosin, and the I bands are the area with actin fibers without any overlapping myosin fibers. When the muscles shorten during a contraction, the width of the A band does not change, but the width of the I band shortens because the overlap between the actin and myosin increases as the muscle contracts. The Z disc is where the ends of the actin fibers are anchored, and the sections of the myofibril between the Z lines are called sarcomeres. The sarcomeres are called the basic contractile unit of the muscle because shortening of the sarcomere results in shortening of the myofibril, muscle fiber, fascicles, and the entire muscle. Now let's look at the nerves that transmit signal from the central nervous system to the muscle. The neuron or the nerve cell consists of cell body, dendrites, and axon. For motor neurons, the cell body is located in the anterior horn of the spinal cord, and the axon travels from the spinal cord to the muscles. This means that the nerve that innervates the muscles of the foot has an axon that runs the entire length of the leg. The bundles of axons from multiple neurons is what we call a nerve. The motor unit is the smallest functional unit of the muscle. The motor unit consists of a motor neuron and all the muscle fibers that it innervates. All of the muscle fibers in a motor unit are the same muscle type. And when the signal is sent from the motor neuron, all of the muscle fibers in the motor unit contracts together. This is what we call a all or none principle. Some of the motor units in your body have a large number of muscle fibers, while the others only have a small number of muscle fibers. The muscles that are used in fine movements, such as muscles that control the eyelid and small facial muscles, tend to have small motor units with a small number of muscle fibers to allow fine adjustment of force produced by the muscles. The muscles that are used in gross movements that require high force production tends to have larger motor units with a larger number of muscle fibers.